Thank you for tuning in to the Redefining YEW podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by my brother from another mother, Mr. Alton Edmond, Esquire. He and I will be diving into the topic of financial literacy. So if you need to get your coins together, this is an episode you cannot afford to miss. Let's get started. Hey, you. Welcome back to the Redefining YEW podcast, season 3. Episode 7. We in here, y'all. We way over halfway through the season, and I am super excited about just the traction that the podcast is getting. You guys are giving incredible feedback. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Lyndria Wynn. I'm the host of the Redefining YEW podcast. And if you're looking for some additional content, some feel good, come on over, subscribe, be a part of the fam bam. We'd love to have you. We grow and glow over here, but this season is actually really, really special because we are actually healing out loud this season. God has really placed that on my heart. And the word tells us that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So what we doing? We telling our testimony and we're healing out loud. And I have another incredible guest. We got some company, y'all. So get excited because we don't typically do this. If you are 3 seasons in, we've only had one other male on the podcast, and that's actually my husband. So this second male that we're going to be interviewing today, he's joining us all the way from Cocoa, Florida, and he is my brother, y'all. He ain't my real blood brother, but that's my brother. That's my brother. So y'all help me welcome the Alton Edmond Esquire. Hey, bro.
What's happening?
Was that
Thank
a
you
good
for having
intro?
me. I love it. I appreciate that. Make me feel like somebody.
Yeah, you somebody. Y'all gonna learn. He's somebody for real, for real. You'll learn a little bit more about why he's here in a minute. But just introduce yourself. Tell them all about who you are, because you a whole lot of things.
Oh my God. So I am an attorney. I own my own law practice. I'm a motivational speaker. I own my own motivational speaking company. I'm a real estate investor. I own my own real estate investment company. I am a combat sports promoter, and I own my own combat sports promotion company. I manage 3 properties at the moment at 34 years old, not married, no children. And I'm just doing the best I can to try to leave the world around me a little bit better than I found it. In a very short synopsis, that's who I am.
That's pretty impressive, because I'm like, he gonna be here a minute. Y'all get ready, hunker in, because he gonna be here a minute. He's a whole lot of things, as you can see. And like you said, at the age of 34 years old, that's very, very impressive. You've left out one important piece. My brother's a whole author out here, okay? A whole author out here. Like, what? Forget that, but I can understand how you would forget all these things that you do. You do all the things. And I'm so proud of you, bro. He's actually my baby's goddaddy. He's my oldest son's godfather. And he's so tender about that boy. He is so tender about him, about all children, actually. So you may be wondering, okay, so what is he gonna tell us? He's not married, he don't have no kids. What he gonna tell us? Because we be talking about kids and stuff. We're talking about money today, y'all. Okay. We getting into all the things because the Holy Spirit has really been dealing with me in my private time about just being a good steward over the things that he has blessed me with. I can't tell you what you do in your spare time, but as far as I'm concerned, I get money. I do that. But keeping it and making money work for me has been a really, really difficult thing for me to do. So I'm hopeful that this conversation is going to shed light, inspire, excite, and ignite you guys to take action when it comes to your finances. If you already figured that thing out, more power to you. I'm proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing. But if you have not, join us because we're going to grow today. Okay. So
Let's go.
Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, because I feel like they're going to need to have context, because they're like, oh, he had it all together. He saw this growing up. Give them a little bit of context. Who were you growing up? Tell us about that.
Okay, especially in terms of finances. Growing up, I was raised by my single mother in government subsidized housing. We were the ones that family members didn't want to come to our house because we had roaches and we had rats. Um, and there was almost never enough. um,
Wow.
my mom every month would be borrowing money from people from the church, from relatives and family members, because the food stamps hit at the beginning of the month, and usually by the end of the month, the refrigerator would be empty, and mom would have to borrow whatever she needed to borrow just so that we can have food until the food stamps hit again. And so I grew up in a life of lack. I was the kid that wore hand-me-down clothes from relatives and family members because, my mom didn't have the money to be able to give me a new wardrobe at the beginning of every school year. And so a lot of times I got some of the leftovers from my relatives and whatnot, just so that I could, have some clothes to wear. I remember one year when I was going to the sixth grade, transitioning from elementary school to middle school, in my hometown, Clewiston, Florida. Shout out, go Tigers. Um, I remember when I was making that transition in elementary school, there were not uniforms at my elementary school. But at the middle school, there were uniforms. You had to wear khaki pants. You had to wear collared polo shirts, and if you didn't, you weren't allowed to come to school. I remember missing the first week of school because my mom just couldn't afford to buy me uniforms to be able to go to school. And so I had to sit out the first week of school until I had family members donate their khaki uniforms and whatnot, because they went to high school where there was no uniform. And so they didn't need the uniforms anymore. So my cousins who transitioned to ninth grade for high school gave me their clothes so that I could start middle school. But I literally wouldn't have been able to go to school until my mom was able to get together the finances, and things were tight. And so that's how my middle school career started, at Clewiston Middle School. And I'm just grateful that things have changed now. But
Yeah.
my focus, because we didn't have the finances and whatnot, my focus was very much on academics and making sure that I did everything I could in school. Because even though we didn't have much, my mom always dreamed of a day when we would have more and be in a different situation that we were in, and always gave me a reason to hope that we would live a better life someday.
Mm.
And so from those middle school years were a struggle a little bit, just adjusting to life and realizing, I think, for the first time how poor we really were. Because I think in elementary school I was really oblivious to that, but in middle school it really became obvious how much less I had than everyone else, and that was the real introduction in sixth grade. But once I was able to get through those things, starting high school, that things really changed for me in terms of my focus on academia and pursuing excellence. And I want to say from the 10th grade to the 12th grade, I can only remember having one C on a report card from 10th grade to 12th grade.
Wow.
From 10th grade to 12th grade, I only remember maybe having a handful of B's on a report card for those 3 years. And pretty much every grade I made was an A. And I was able to graduate from high school with honors, and transition to the University of Florida, go Gators, where I obtained my Bachelor of Arts in 4 years, and then went on to FAMU College of Law, go Rattlers, and attained my Juris Doctorate degree. And so today, I'm the most educated person in my family's history, and I'm on track to being the wealthiest person in my family's history. And I'm just grateful that you don't have to end up the way you started out.
Come on
If
here.
you Come on now, if you remain vigilant, if you remain prayerful, and if you remain dutiful and focused on your goals and dreams. And
I
so
love that.
that's my childhood in a nutshell.
I love that. And y'all, I'm just gonna interject real quick. So I met Alton Alton don't remember meeting me, but I remember meeting Alton. Because there was a time when Alton was trying to rock this bald head. And I don't, he probably so shamed. But there was a time when my bro was bald headed. Okay. He had a bald head and he was so energetic. So much like many of our guests have been, we met in some type of music arena. Okay. He's no different. We met at a choir night that my church had hosted and packed it out. He was a part of the, I guess, the UGC, the University Gospel Choir at that time. And when he
Hmm.
came over, he was actually with Scooter. He was filling in for one of our tenors that didn't make it. And he ended up singing with us, the actual church that was hosting it. And I just remember standing next to him, this bald head man, and he was just elbowing me as he moved. I'm like, sir, come on out.
My bad.
He was just so energetic, so full of just life. And then fast forward, it's funny how life goes around. Fast forward, FAMU Law School is actually in Orlando, Florida. So he came and joined us at the University of Central Florida Gospel Choir, where he was singing with us. And I was like, I know you. Like, you know me? I was like, you know Scooter? That's Kenneth now, Dr.
Come on,
Johnson.
Kenny
At
Johnson.
this point, at this point, Dr. Johnson. You know Scooter? Oh, I know Scooter. I'm telling you, I met you before. So that is how we, I guess, connected, started to run in the same circles. Obviously, he and my husband became very good friends. They are the best of friends today. He's been at my wedding, he's my son's godfather. So here we are. Here we are all those years later. It's been, I've known you for longer than 10 years at this point, but it's here we are all these years later. So I
It's
really,
crazy, and
go ahead.
it's crazy, and there's actually a story behind that bald head. So that was also related to me being broke as a joke. Um, I didn't have any money my freshman or sophomore year at UF. And so I used to just shave my head because I didn't have money to afford a haircut every week.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah. And so,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. So when you met me and versus where I am now, like I was still, leaving my mom's house at 17 years old to go to the University of Florida. She didn't have money to send me. And so, I ate with whatever I could put together, whatever was left over from my scholarship money. And I started working in my second year at UF to be able to have a little extra money. But it wasn't until my second, third year at UF that I was able to pay for a haircut every week or two. And so I had a
Wow.
bald head when you met me because I was shaving my own head because I just couldn't afford to pay a barber to do it.
You know what? Listen, and that was one of the first things that I recognized. I was like, he don't look like he old enough to have a bald head. Mind you, most of the people that, because bald heads and beards are in now. But back then, like young men are just not going to have a bald head. We were in the waves back then. So you either gonna have some braids. It wasn't even locks. It was braids or some waves. You was trying to get some waves. You was putting your mama pantyhose on your head, trying to get some waves and get the definition. That's what we were doing back in the day. But that's crazy because that was one of the first things that I'm like, he's so young to have a bald head. But to each his own, to each its own.
Uh-huh.
And you know what, bro? I'm with you when you're right because when I went to UCF and my mama cut me off, not cut me off, but stopped funding my nonsense. One of the things that was nonsense was I was away from home for so long. I grew up, my mama had me at the salon with her every 2 weeks. So
Mm.
the hair was always on point when I got to UCF and I didn't have any extra to go get the relaxers as I needed to. My hair just started to really break off. And I was like, well, we just gonna go ahead and go natural because I can't afford going to the salon. I got one box perm. I had never had a box perm in my entire life. I went and got a box perm, and that thing just tore my head all the way up. I said, you know what? There
Lord,
it is. We going natural. And I've rode that natural way for years. And now here we are with locks.
come
Here
on.
we are with locks. But I was the captain of the creamy cat. creamy crack community. Okay, the long and flowing. Hear me, hear
Come
me.
on.
That's interesting that you say that because we do make modifications to our lifestyle. We can adjust when we have to. And many times people are thinking that we're just trying to be current or just doing something different when in reality we just out here trying to survive. We just out here
You
trying to
doing what
survive.
you do. Hmm.
So, okay, 17, 18. What was one of the most memorable experiences you had with money in your adulthood? Share a little bit about that. Like one of your first experiences that you can remember with money, whether you had, a little bit extra or I really ain't got none.
Um, okay. So when I transitioned from the University of Florida in 2011 to law school, um, uh, I was used to at UF when the semester start, that financial aid dispersed right away. As soon as the drop ad period ends, that financial aid dispersed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had never had the HBCU experience, and nobody warned me. Now I love my HBCUs, love them, shout out to them. But FAMU, when it came to financial aid, was not it.
Oh
And so,
no.
oh yeah, oh yeah. So, um, I moved to Orlando for law school, and I had a little money saved up, but not a whole lot. And so, I was renting a room in somebody's house. It was a gay couple, two white men, and they were renting out. They had it's a 4 bedroom house. They lived in the master bedroom together, and they had 3 bedrooms on the opposite end of the house down the hall that they rented out to strangers. And so I rented a room in their house for $400 a month. And I remember the financial aid didn't hit. After a month after class started, financial aid hadn't hit.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the financial aid didn't hit until probably a month and a half after classes started. But a month after classes started, I'm starting to run out of money, and I didn't have the money to pay my rent for my room. And so I tell them, hey, my financial aid is coming, but I just really don't have it until the financial aid comes. And these dudes go off like they business owners. They're renting a room, and so they're going off, and they're talk every other day. They're complaining and saying this and saying that. And so I remember my aunt, my mother's younger sister. I was talking to her on the phone. She was reaching out just to check up on me, and I was talking to her on the phone and telling her about the situation. And these the one of the dudes, I don't know, maybe he was the wife of the couple, I don't know, but he was the more effeminate of the two.
Okay.
Um, he said to me, he said something racist to me. I don't remember what it was, but I told my aunt about it, and she was like, "I'm gonna send you some money. You go get you an apartment, and I will co-sign for you."
Wow.
And that's how I got my first apartment. When I was in my first year of law school, and renting a room from somebody, and I was so broke I couldn't pay $400 for the rent. And my aunt, when they started going off and saying whatever they were saying, they could have said get out and evicted me, but they had to add a little something on there. My aunt sent me the money that I needed to get my first apartment and co-sign for me. And she had a high security clearance with the government. She was doing federal government work. And I never forget when she told me, you know, my credit is really important to the work that I do for my security clearance. And so if you can't pay the rent, you just call me and you let me know. But under no circumstances do you let this rent get behind when I have co-signed, because that could cause issues for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was one of those experiences in life that was life changing for me. It taught me about credit and the importance of having good credit. And it was a reminder about having savings, having money left over for a rainy day. And so that was the last time in my life that I have ever asked for money to help for pay my personal bills. My first year of law school, 2011. And
Wow.
I'm grateful. that was some time ago. But I've never asked someone for money to help me with personal bills since then, because I made a commitment to make sure that I did whatever I needed to do to set aside extra cash, whatever it took. And so since then, I've been fired from jobs. I mean, all sorts of things have happened, but I've never had to ask for money to pay my personal bills, because I have always kept some cash for a rainy day, always invested my money, always made sure I had something left over. That experience was life changing. And I'm so grateful for my Aunt Sylvia. You mentioned me being an author. Aunt Sylvia is actually one of the people that was in my acknowledgments for my book. Obviously my godson was, and many others, but my Aunt Sylvia, she deserves, man, an extra shout out. She's one of the primary reasons why I'm where I am today. And I made sure that I her in my first book. Maybe it'll be the first of many, we'll see. But yeah, Aunt Sylvia came through for me, and I'll never forget that situation.
I can imagine. I mean, you never realize what people going through and what or the sacrifices that they've had to make to just exist. Because some
Mm-hmm.
400, like you said, $400 a month. Now, back then, I mean, I don't know what the cost of living has gone up to with comparison. Maybe it was like $900 now. I don't know, but still, $400 to pay for rent and you didn't have it. And then for your auntie to come through and not only get you out of the situation, but put you in a position to win. Many times, I think I don't know. I feel like once we've made it, because it sounds like your aunt was in a position where she could put you, give you that leg up. I often feel like sometimes when we get up there, we forget what it's like to be down and needing
Mm-hmm.
somebody to lift them up and assist them and help them. And I was so happy that your auntie came through for you in that way. And I can see you in many ways just paying it forward, because the way that he does a lot of charity work. I don't think he talked a lot about that, but he does a lot of charity work. He does a lot of, I guess, I would consider you to be like a philanthropist, because you do so much for the community. You're like a change agent when it comes to just changing the trajectory of young people's life. I've seen that you've been very intentional about young people and starting when they're young and impacting them when they're young. And I imagine it's because you can remember the time where, your book is called Don't Be Sad. And in your book, you're talking about, the depression that you felt, the inferiority that you felt as a child, as a young man, as a man of color. First of all, that's add another layer on top of that, because kids go through stuff all the time. But being a black little boy, like there's so much that you've experienced that we probably wouldn't even have all the time to talk about it today. But I know now you are living a life of wealth. And I want to know what has been how has the term wealth changed? How has that definition changed for you now versus what you thought it was back then?
Right. So growing up, I grew up real hood. And so growing up, I had a cousin. He's currently doing 37 years in prison for attempted first degree murder.
Ooh.
But back in the day, he was the epitome of wealth. He was what we looked at. He had gold teeth. He had a car that was sitting on triple gold D rims. Um, he he was that dude. But he was a drug dealer, and he was one of the biggest drug dealers in the area, and that's how he got his money. And um, but all the things he had, the jewelry, the freshest clothes, and all of that stuff just uh, made me and my cousins, many of us, look up to him for all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And so once upon a time, when I thought of wealth, I thought of a nice car. I thought of uh, nice clothes, jewelry, gold teeth, things like that. And it wasn't until I was in college that I really started researching money, because um, ever since I was young, I knew that one day I would have a lot of money. But it wasn't until I was in college that I began to be on the path to building wealth. And when I was an undergrad, that same Aunt Sylvia, she taught me how to start investing in the stock market. And I started investing in the stock market. And just to fast forward to that law school experience, when I was about to get evicted, I had money in stocks and bonds. The problem was that money's not liquid, and it's
Yeah.
back then it's harder to be able to transition and sell the stock and transfer it back to your bank. It was a whole process, and it could have taken weeks to do that. I would have already been on the streets by then.
Yeah.
And so Aunt sent me some cash right away. But I think, when I was in college, that's when I started reading a bunch of books about finances. I started reading Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I started reading Suze Orman. I started reading from these different financial gurus that were breaking down the keys to wealth. But the book that changed my life, sis, can I tell you the book that changed my life? Can I grab
Yeah.
it and show you the book that
Yes,
changed my life?
please. Please.
I, I just I just recently ordered another copy of the book because like you said, I try to give back. And so I gave the copy of this book to a young lady that was transitioning from high school to college. And so I didn't have my copy anymore. But the book is called The Millionaire Next Door.
Okay.
The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley and William Danko. And I remember reading that book as a freshman in college, and it changed the way I looked at money. This book basically did a survey of a bunch of millionaires and billionaires. They invited all these millionaires and billionaires, fed them and all of this stuff, and then they interviewed them and had them do a survey. And these millionaires talked about what type of clothes they wore, what type of cars they drove, how they got their wealth and all of that. And here's a common theme. The vast majority of them were self-made millionaires from business.
Wow.
Most of them, their businesses had something to do with real estate. Most of them were married and had never been divorced. Most of them did not spend excessive money on suits and clothes. And so they talked about a certain threshold. They didn't have clothes in their closet over a certain amount of money. Most of them did not have foreign luxury vehicles. And so what I realized from these surveys of the wealthiest people in the world at that time is that most of the wealthiest people in the world didn't live like my cousin, the drug dealer that I looked up to all of those years as a kid.
Yeah.
Most of them lived a very different life. Most of them lived very modestly, lived very simply, didn't drive the luxury vehicles, didn't spend their money the way that I thought wealthy people did. I later learned that those were rich people that spent their money buying shiny things.
That's it.
But wealthy people were the people who you wouldn't look at and think that they were very wealthy, but they were. And for example, fast forward to today and the way that I live my life. A lot of people wouldn't think that I have a bunch of money by the way I live. I drive a Toyota Avalon, and I live in a studio apartment. But so I get flack. I had a friend that once was like, why don't you drive a Benz or something like that? And I told him straight up, like, I can afford to have one of those if I wanted to. But I don't want a car payment because the money that I would be spending on a car payment, I'm putting aside to buy my next property. And so I live in an apartment and I own 2 houses, but my houses, I rent them out for income. And so I'm in a position where, I don't have to do the things that look good and look flashy and look shiny to try to impress other people, because that's not where my value lies. And that is not in line with my financial goals. And if someone doesn't want to hire my law firm because they don't see me pull up in a Lexus, I'm cool with that, because plenty of people are going to pay the price for excellence, regardless of what type of car it drives.
Absolutely.
Um, and I just learned to live my life differently after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it turning my reality upside down.
Wow.
I don't know if I answered your question, but
You did. You did actually. So interestingly enough, I told my mom that I was interviewing you today and we were just talking about it because for Mother's Day, my mom gifted me with a new book that I am reading currently called Financial Literacy for All by John Hope Bryant. This is what I'm reading right now. And I'm not finished with it. I was trying to finish it in between my gap for classes because I'm back in school. But I was
come
trying to
on.
finish it in between classes. And so far, it's been enlightening. I felt all the things: frustration, anger, just sad. Like, dang, we were really like the disenfranchisement of Black people in America has been just it's despicable. It's disgusting when I read it and think about it, and understanding that most people will never pick up that book. It broke my heart to think about because
Mm,
most people are not considering they want to be rich, but they don't want to be wealthy. And I'm learning
mm,
more and more. Like I said, the Holy Spirit been dealing with me. Like wealth doesn't necessarily have a look, doesn't have an appearance, because it's more about the values and what it is that you value. When we may not think that you're rich when you're looking
mm,
at your house, but when you go travel, we know you got something in the bank. And it's because of the values and the things that you value. Like some people, they call them house poor because their house
mm,
is just so extravagant and beautiful, and those are the things that they value. Maybe they enjoy hosting, maybe they enjoy gathering people, maybe they enjoy being that safe haven for family or what have you. But wherever your value is, like the Bible says, wherever your heart is, that's wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart gonna be. So
mm,
ultimately, I really think that's why you're here, because we are mending our mindset around money. There's so much healing that we have to do, because just like your cousin displayed what you thought at the time was wealth, in reality, he was rich for his day. And until we start to crave and desire, I guess, wholeness within and understanding who we are and who we were designed to be, I think we will always be chasing a life of richness rather than wealth.
mm.
Unfortunately. And that's just something that I'm mending, I'm healing. Why, Drew, why do you want these things? Is it because there's something that you feel that's inadequate in you? Are you trying to, live something that you never experienced before? Like understanding and asking myself more questions before I'm making these purchases has been really helpful for me. Do you need that? If the answer is no, if you can ask yourself if you need it, you probably don't need it, because
Mm.
the necessities of life you're going to get it without questioning yourself. But if you got to ask yourself, do I need this? The answer is probably no. And in the last month or so, I've been getting really, really good with saying, I don't need that. And I'm okay. I don't feel any less of a woman. I'm not any I'm not any less fly. Like, and I really had to stop getting on TikTok and Instagram, and I had to scale back on looking at reels. Oh, that's so nice. Let me go get that.
Come
And
on.
what I found has been helpful is I've been window shopping online. Even just the hormonal boost of putting something in the cart. I've noticed that endorphin rush and push from putting something in the cart. Sometimes I just need to put it in the cart and just close out of it, and I'm okay. And I'm recovering. Pray for me because I'm recovering.
I got
The endorphin rush of putting something in the cart, but just not hitting pay now, has been everything that I need to get me through this moment of I need to go spend somebody's money and go spend my money, and instead of putting it aside.
you know what helped me? What helped me is what I started doing is years ago, I started just breaking down, what do I make per hour? And how many hours am I going to have to spend working to pay for this thing that I'm buying?
Woo.
And that changed things for me, because most people, for most people, getting up and going to work isn't an easy thing to do every single day, but we do it because we have to. Those are our responsibilities.
Absolutely.
I happen to love what I love what I do. I love getting up to go to work. But that doesn't mean it's not difficult. My work is stressful. It takes a lot out of me sometimes. And am I willing to endure that type of stress and have that stuff taken out of me to have this stuff? And oftentimes the answer is no. You know, I'm grateful that, again, I went from a place where my mom made $242 every 2 weeks. That was her check every 2 weeks. To now I make $300 an hour for the work that I do. And I think about it when I want to buy something. Okay, how many hours do I have to work to pay for this thing? And is it worth it? And so, you know, you look around my apartment, I have everything that I need and some, but I don't have a bunch of extra lavish things that I just really don't need, because, you know, I've done that cost benefit analysis so many times. And it's so many times that I've thought about buying something and just decided not to, because I thought about the hours that I work, the stress that I endure. And for what? For these shoes that I'm gonna wear maybe once a month, if that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's a blessing. In fact, your husband, believe it or not, is he's my closest friend in the whole world, and he's someone that he always tells me, man, you don't really reward yourself enough. I think that I've taken it kind of to the extreme sometimes. And so believe it or not, I don't really buy Jordans like that. And I like them. They're beautiful. I like to see other people with them, but I didn't have a pair of Jordans in my closet. I didn't. And I hadn't for years. And for my birthday this past year, my birthday, 2023, August, when I came back from my trip, your husband had bought me 2 pairs of Jordans for my birthday. And I mean, it was a beautiful gift. And I've worn them maybe a handful of times since he got them for me, because I like to take care of what I have, take care of my stuff. But I do think that, you know, you at some point you got to strike a balance and reward yourself. But, you know, you got to keep that within your budget and do it within reason. And so the way in recent years, the way that I've rewarded myself is every year I take a trip and I go to a different country every year for my birthday. And so I visit all kinds of places in the Caribbean, South America, Central America. And yes, last year, 2023, was the first year that I crossed the big pond to head over to Europe. And so I went to Spain, I went to London, I went to Paris, I went to Germany, and had an opportunity to see things and experience things that many of the people that grew up in the project that I grew up in have only seen on television. And I'm so grateful. But you know, understanding wealth and putting yourself in a position to be able to have excess funds to be able to do with what you please comes with a responsibility.
For sure.
A responsibility to manage what you have, and to cause it to multiply, to be a good steward, as you said, over what you're blessed with. And the thing that I noticed is that the better steward I was over my finances, the more God just seemed to bless me and to cause what I had to multiply.
Absolutely.
And so being a philanthropist, giving away money the way that I have, I've never lacked. And so I'll tell you, you know, since I started my business in 2017, there hasn't been a year that I've given less than $10,000 away. Wow. And there has been years when I've given $50,000 away of my own money that I've earned. And I just think it's really important to give back. and
Yeah.
to sow into your community and to use your finances to bless others. And I'm telling you, when I'm giving away money, I've never lacked as a result of that, and I've always seen my bank account flourish. Matter of fact, I wrote a check for a nonprofit this year for $1,000, and I sent that money off, and I want to say no less than a week later, I signed up a new client that dropped a deposit of 5,000 off to put right in my bank account. When I've taken my trips to treat myself and whatnot, I get back from my vacation. I get back from my vacation to new clients and new money in the bank account.
Yeah.
When I was in Europe, I had my staff member making deposits into my bank account of thousands of dollars while I'm in Europe on that trip. And so it's just been a blessing to be able to transition from one place to the opposite place when it comes to finances. I being in a place where I was amongst some of the poorest people in America, to now being in a place where I'm in, I want to say somewhere near the 90th percentile of earner in the United States. Man, it's a blessing. And it comes with a great responsibility that I hope viewers pay attention to and also get out of this. I'm not just bragging on me.
We trying to get like you, Doc. We trying to get like you. Especially, I want to bring something up because many times I say we, Black people, it could be white people too, but we aspire to have the American dream, whatever that is. And that's been really broken down in this financial literacy for all, because the American dream is not attainable because of the broken capitalism that we live in currently for many of us. And I was really, really, just before the podcast started, I was thinking like, my bro is doing this without a two income situation. Like this isn't he and his wife, like he's doing this single-handedly with the help of God and, assistance and all of those things. But he's doing these things without an additional stream of income from an additional person. So when you join forces with a spouse, like they have to be an asset, because anything other than that could be literally a screwdriver in the boat and make you sink. Like they're either an asset or a liability. And I think what you've really done now is money is not the goal, money is a tool. And when you can see money as a tool or as a resource or as what we call a seed, and many times all you are responsible, God will give you more seed. He will give you as many seeds as he can trust you with. And clearly he trusts you with the seeds, bro. He is trusting you with the seeds. And I think one of the reasons God was like, on my neck, like, girl, I'm trusting you with all this seed. Where is the harvest? Where is the harvest? The seed isn't for you to go into somebody else's garden and go get that. You're supposed to plant the seeds. And if nothing else, I was encouraged. I think I heard this on someone else's podcast, but they were talking about how do you emulate God? And they say you be a creator. You create like God created, and you've
Absolutely.
gone out and been a creator. I mean, and I know we're talking in this digital age, and so social media content. And no, a creator is just you create something, you build something. You've built multiple businesses. So you, if nothing else, are emulating God. You've used your mind to go out and your business savvy or what have you, your networking ability. You've gone out and you've created these different streams of income that continues to pay you while you're sleeping passively. While you're sleeping passively. And we're actually going to get into the word. We're going to transition into the redefining moment because he led us right into it. He led us right into it. So, of course, every redefining moment, we try to take it back to the word. We cement whatever dialogue, whatever conversation we've had with biblical principles, and wealth and money is in the Bible, y'all. And literally, God will call you straight up wicked if you do not steward over the resources that he's giving you. So I'm going to read a little bit, quite a bit today. Normally it's a couple verses, but The parable of the talents is what a lot of people call it, depending upon the version that you're reading from. It could say something different. This one actually says the parable of the bags of gold. So it just depends on what you're reading from. We're going to read Matthew chapter 25, verse 14 through 30. Okay, so bear with me. I'm a fluent reader, but he's fine, a little small, so don't talk about me, bro. Okay, it says, again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Pin that real quick, because think about that. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold, at once, he went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more bags. So also one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold bought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you were a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one with 10 bags. For whoever has been given more, they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So if you ever needed any little bit of, well, show me that in the Bible, here it is. I mean, like, if you ever needed like any more proof about finances, and it was so much in that parable. But many people, they say, well, I didn't start off with anything. I didn't have anything growing up. They had the 5 and I only had 2. But mind you, it didn't matter. They were both considered good and faithful servants, because all he's expecting and requiring of you is to be a good steward and be a good mathematician and multiply that thing. That's all he's expecting of you. It doesn't matter what you start with, because you may not be a billionaire at this point, but you on your way. And as long as you start and you steward over what he's giving you and you multiply that thing, because that is your responsibility. He gives. Now you do the multiplication. That is where you are applying the scripture of, work, faith without work is dead. That servant that put the gold in the ground, he worked. He called himself protecting it, making sure. But in reality, he was a lazy servant. He didn't do the bare minimum, which was to put it in a bank where it could be in a position to gain and to earn. And if we don't do those things, we are operating as that man, putting his money in the ground. If we don't shift our mindset, if we don't heal and mend our mindset around money, we are acting in the same wicked manner as someone else. That if we go out and squander the wealth that he has given, you better believe there's going to come a day, if nothing else, the pandemic and the shutdowns showed us that. If you did not save and prepare for a rainy day, you might be out here with nothing. Nothing, bare minimum. And if nothing else, we got to be responsible for the wealth that he's blessed us with so that we can be entrusted with more. So, bro, the breakdown for us, how did this verse speak to you? Because I sent it to him yesterday, so I'm interested to get your perspective on this verse.
Well, it spoke volumes to me because I remember so many situations where different people saw that I was doing some financial things different than they were, and they asked me for my advice, and often they didn't take it. And years later, I look and I see the results of them not taking my advice. And I don't get upset with them or anything like that. But you know, when I take trips and I let my friends know, hey, I'm taking a trip. If you're interested, let me know. And they just don't have the ability to participate, you know, it's because of their choices. Because I have never not, I've never missed an opportunity to try to share the different keys that have been shared with me and the things that I picked up along the way. And I think it also led me to another verse. One of the verses that is one of my favorite when I think about financial literacy. And I can't even tell you what book or scripture it is, but the verse says something to the effect of, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children. And I'd like to think that I'm a good man, or at least I try to be every single day.
Yeah.
And so it's important for me when it comes to my finances to position myself to leave an inheritance for my children and my grandchildren. And I don't even have children yet.
Facts. I mean, you are so ahead of the game, like, bro. And it can be debilitating, because for someone that has children and looking back at some of the money that has been like wasted, and you don't even realize that you didn't even realize it until you look back and like, whoa, I really wilded out. Like, what's going on? What advice would you give to someone who is in that position? Maybe they do have children. Maybe they are in the thick of making a bad purchasing decision right now. They're not considering the future and what, you know, they're not considering the tools, which is the money. What advice would you give someone that is in the thick of making their bad decisions or trying to recover, or taking that first step into the financial literacy pond? What advice would you give to someone that's like that?
Well, the first step, because I've heard you mention your own financial decisions once or twice. The first step, because we're talking about healing out loud. And healing out loud this season is to forgive yourself. You got to forgive yourself. And I'm talking to everybody else too, but I'm talking to you specifically. You got to forgive yourself for the decisions that you've made that were not in line with your goals and your aspirations. Because I can point to a lot of bad financial decisions that I've made and choices that I've made. I just think that I've made more good financial decisions than negatively impactful ones. And so, but you got to forgive yourself for the ones that you've made that didn't work out, that weren't right. And you have to decide to move forward differently. And I think the first step that I would tell anyone in putting themselves on a different financial page after forgiving themselves is looking at their finances, taking an honest look at their finances and seeing what their money is doing. Pull up bank statements, credit card statements, and I want you to put everything that you made in the last 3 months on one side. This is what I made. And I want you to put everything that you spent on the other side. And I want you to just look at it. If I made, I don't know, over 3 months, if I made $15,000, but I spent $25,000, that's gonna slap me in the face.
Woo!
Right?
And, you know, math is one of them things, because it's possible with the credit card industry, because it's like, you don't have it. No. Hear us out. You could have spent $25,000 because the interest rates are telling. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing about math, the thing I love about math is that it doesn't lie.
It don't lie. It's all fact. It don't got no opinion.
When you put those numbers together and you add what you made and you put it side by side with what you spent, those numbers are going to tell the truth about your financial choices that you're making. And so that's the first thing I did when I was ready to make some changes. I set my finances side by side, and I started going through what I spent and realizing, man, I'm spending so much money eating out. I need to change that. Man, I'm spending so much money entertaining. Even the way that I dated had to change when I started looking into my finances, because once upon a time, your brother was out there. I ain't even gonna lie.
Serial dater.
Your brother was out there once upon a time. And we live in a day and time where a man is generally expected to pay for dates, right?
For sure.
And I'm someone that considers himself chivalrous. And so, even if I'm not expected to pay, I offer, and so that's what I do. Yeah. And so, when I was way back in the day, when I was in law school X amount of years ago, and I'm out here single doing my thing, I'd be dating 5, 6, 7, 8 people at the same time, and I'm spending my money, taking all of them on dates, and I'm realizing, dang, I'm at this restaurant, I'm at that restaurant, I'm paying for this movie, I'm paying for this experience and that thing. And I'm in law school at the time. I didn't have all that much money to begin with. But I realized that even my dating choices from my financial statements were causing issues in my finances. And so forgive yourself, and then take an honest look at your finance. Go back 3 months and put your income versus your expenses, and just really sit in that, in the choices that you've made over the last 3 months. And it'll be eye-opening for a lot of people, the simple changes that they can make to cut out things that can completely change their financial lives. Because you don't need to eat at Chick-fil-A and Burger King 3, 4, 5 times a week.
Especially and food that's going bad in the fridge.
Come on now.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. That one bag of salad that you get at every grocery haul that gets nasty every time. Come on now. And so, my God, those are very simple words of advice that I would give someone for starters. If they're looking to change their financial picture, forgive yourself and take an honest look at your last 90 days of spending versus income. And it's really going to open your eyes to what you could be doing differently and what you have been doing with your money. I love that. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to.
I want you. I'm gonna hold you accountable. I want you to send me a text and let me know once you've done it. You don't got to send me all your numbers. I don't need to be all in your business, even though you're my sister and I love you. Okay. But just let me know. Let me know what your thoughts were on that, the revelations that you saw when you complete that task.
I'm a little scared. I ain't gonna lie. I'm scared, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it because I've already been on the path, but I haven't done that because I already know it's gonna be some mess. But we need to see it. We need to see it because honestly, I'm one of those people. Unfortunately, it got to get real bad sometimes for me to make a shift. And I feel like once I see that, yeah, Dre, that's crazy. That is craziness. But I'm here for it. I'm prepared to make the shift. And I appreciate you so much for being with us. So I told him I was going to get him out of here early because he got stuff to do today. But I appreciate you spending this time with me. And I want you to let the people know where they can find you.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate that. The people can find me on social media. I'm Alton Edmond Esquire, ALTONEDMOND. They can find me on Instagram under that same handle, Alton Edmond Esquire. They can find me using my websites for my law firm, EdmondTrialLaw.com. That's my last name, TrialLaw.com. They can find my motivational speaking company, EdmondInspiration.com. And I'm also on TikTok, y'all, Singing Attorney. At TikTok. And I'm cutting up, but if you look at some of my videos, I'm also sharing some of these tidbits.
Some real stuff.
Well, so you get a little bit of both. I'm having a good time and I'm gonna make you laugh, but I'm also gonna give you some real stuff, some real advice because I want to see your life change for the better. And if I can contribute to that, then I'll be glad to do so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And since we stand true to what we do here, we believe in being generous. And granted, we don't have the seed to go as far as my bro here, but we can make any small deposit into your life. So we are actually going to sponsor two books. Okay. So if you have little people, mending and healing is something that, there's no age limit in it. The earlier, the better, quite frankly, because there's a whole lot of broken adults out here that just refuse to be whole. But if we can get our little people and our young men, especially, because they are expected to be the leaders when they are out in the world creating families. But if you have little people, younger people that can read, or if you read to them, we're going to sponsor two of his Don't Be Sad books. It's a really, really easy read. And I really feel like it'll address some of the things that you may not even know. It'll open up dialogue for you and your family around depression, because that stuff can start very, very early. And the sooner that you uproot some of those things, it can easily combat and put you on a path of wealth, because wealth is not just a material thing, it's a mindset, it's a lifestyle. I mean, health, we know now, is wealth, and mental health and all of those things all contribute to the whole individual. And we believe in uplifting that. So we're sponsoring two books. So what I want you to do is, if you got all the way here, comment in the comment section, I want one. That's what I want you to say. I want one. And then we'll be sending it over to you and we'll be sponsoring the book.
Sis, I want to match you.
Okay.
I want to as well. And
cool.
So you let me know who and where I need to ship them to, and I will ship them myself with a personal note from the author.
Oh, yeah, y'all can get a better book than mine. Go ahead. Or what I'll do, I'll send you the money and then you can write notes in all of them so everybody gets the same experience.
That'll work. I got you.
Awesome. Thank you for being with me today. I appreciate you. I love you so much.
I
love
love
you
you
so
back.
much.
Nothing you can do about it either, sis.
All right, y'all. That is another episode of the Redefining You podcast in the books. I appreciate you hanging with me up until this point. See y'all. Bye.